All right, everybody. This is Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News and the Believe Network here on the Talkin' Ball with Pat Leonard podcast, welcoming you to another episode of Talkin' Ball Live with Pat Leonard here on October 24th, Thursday night. This is our Pittsburgh Steelers, New York Giants preview, and also the episode where we have to dissect John Mara's comments, his vote of confidence in Joe Schoen, in Brian Daboll, in the Giants leadership. I was there in Manhattan, in Midtown, when John Mara, the Giants co-owner, put his name on it. He said that he does not anticipate a change after this season at GM or coach, let alone they will not be making any changes during the year. Said he still believes in the general manager and coach in their process. Said he sits and listens to their plans for building this the right way, their personnel evaluations, and he still has confidence in them. That obviously is great news for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll because the product on the field, as Mara said, is something that is terribly disappointing, that ownership is not happy about, and that above all, he knows the fans are tired of watching. But he said that he is trying to learn patience, a quality that he feels like his dad had and that he preached and lived by, and that John is trying to follow suit. He obviously knows from experience, having fired his last three head coaches either during or after their second seasons, and now is trying to do better at essentially giving a little bit more rope to the people that he has hired in order to get it done. So that's good news for Schoen and Daboll. And as we sit here and now, it seems like they are tracking to be the head coach and general manager again for a fourth season in 2025. It's an interesting dichotomy, though, when you observe Brian Daboll not holding Deonte Banks accountable publicly in any way for a lack of effort on Jalen Hurts' scramble. It falls again on the defensive backs coach, Jerome Henderson, doing it right there on the sideline after calling him out several weeks ago against the Dallas Cowboys. And it falls on Dexter Lawrence, a team leader, a defensive captain, and the best player on this roster, to say to me and a few other reporters in the locker room, I said, what do you say to a player like Banks after a play like that? And he said that it's not acceptable. He knows that. The entire defense knows that's not acceptable, and Banks knows that too. So we address it. That's that, and we move on. But this is the second time this has happened in a game. From my understanding, this is not even the second time it's happened overall, though. This has happened at other points as well along Banks' journey, especially this year, particularly this year. And to me, the head coach needs to hold players accountable, similar to how rookie wide receiver Malik Nabers, we talked about this on our last Talkin' Ball Live. I had not yet seen his full interview, so I went back, watched the interview, listened to his comments, did some reporting on that. And even though it's okay to be frustrated, and especially as a young player, you're going to wear your heart on your sleeve. In my opinion, Malik Nabers cannot imply that the problems on offense might exist, but they're not him. You have to win and lose as a team. And he's going to learn his lesson. But the problem I had is I feel like the head coach did not, again, hold a player accountable. He says, like when he talks about Deonte Banks, he says, I respect our players. No one's saying you don't respect your player. You're allowed to criticize and critique a player and you still respect him. It doesn't mean you don't respect him. You need to provide structure. You need to establish a culture. And I just find this very strange to sit there and hear the head coach say about his star wide receiver, well, he was open. Yeah, well, how do you feel like that makes Greg Van Roten feel, and John Michael Schmitz feel, and Daniel Jones feel? These are other players on the offense trying to do their job. The offensive line obviously was a huge problem and the biggest problem on offense. I would argue the play calling was an even bigger problem than the quarterback in that game. But I bring this up to note the dichotomy between Mara saying he's still confident in what this is going to become, and then watching what I see right in front of my face. Even Daniel Jones today at his locker here on Thursday, October 24th, in week 8, as they prepare to play the Pittsburgh Steelers, Daniel Jones did something he doesn't usually do. He revealed something that Brian Daboll said in private to the team. He was asked if he had any reassurances that if he had a bad quarter or a bad game or a bad play, he wasn't just going to get taken out again. And Jones said that, well, Daboll said to the entire team after the game in the locker room that Daniel was the starter going forward. But he said, as far as his plan, I'm preparing to play and play well. But as far as his plans, you're going to have to ask him. And, that's not headline worthy for a lot of players to say. That's headline worthy for Daniel Jones to say. This is a quarterback who, there have been times where he deserves the blame and deserves to accept it and say that I have to play better. And there are plays he had to make in that game too. But even some signs there of the quarterback tiring, in my opinion, a little bit of the blame game and the lack of accountability being spread all around. He has seen that starting from prior to this season, the finger pointing and blame game going to him, right? The idea that if we get a new quarterback, everything will be right. And so to me, there's just a lot of red flags. It's not even smoke signals. It's red flags about the fact that this operation is not airtight, is not getting better. Of course, all that matters to get a better feeling in the locker room is a victory. So that brings us to the Giants taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, a 2-5 Giants team going to Pittsburgh to face a 5-2 Steelers team. Interesting storylines abound here. Russell Wilson, of course, easily could have been the Giants quarterback. He visited them in free agency before heading over to Pittsburgh and getting an assurance there. The Giants, of course, could not guarantee him a starting job and would not guarantee him a starting job because Joe Schoen had signed Daniel Jones to a 4-year, $160 million contract extension in 2023. You think about the ways in which that contract has restricted and hindered the Giants' spending and roster operations since. It really feels like this is all going to go back in the end when all is said and done and we're writing the epitaph on why this regime failed, which is the direction it seems like it's heading. It's going to, the inflection point is going to be the decision to tag Saquon and sign Daniel and everything that unfolded from there. And not just about the quarterback you're committing to, but also the way that restricts you from spending elsewhere. And so those details, those glaring details about the coach and the accountability and the culture, and then the roster building on the Joe Schoen side, not to mention that they still have a crisis on the offensive line they're trying to solve because they don't have adequate talent and depth there. That all flies in the face of what we listen to when we hear John Mara say the words that he did, delivering that vote of confidence. Now, in Mara's defense, what else is he going to say at this juncture? Obviously, it's still early in the season. And as Benny Fowler told us on the Talking Ball with Pat Leonard podcast, First Down with Benny Fowler after week 7, the Giants are not the Jets. They're not led by Woody Johnson, who still thinks his team is a playoff team and, admittedly does have more talent on the roster, but is firing a coach to try to, get a last-ditch, gasp effort to get his team back in it. The Giants are not going anywhere. Firing Daboll at this juncture is not going to, quote unquote, do anything. So you might as well ride it out to the end of the year to make a decision. And that brings me to one of my main lingering questions in regards to Daboll and Shane's job security. John Mara answered that loud and clear, right? But we haven't heard from Steve Tisch. We haven't heard from the Tisch family. We haven't heard from an owner and a family that controls 50% of this landmark NFL franchise. And it's only fair to note that John Mara has delivered votes of confidence, and Giants ownership has delivered votes of confidence twice in front of Ben McAdoo's firing and in front of Joe Judge's firing. And in both of those scenarios in which they put their names on Ben McAdoo being safe and Joe Judge being safe, in both of those scenarios, the John Mara, Steve Tisch dynamic and the evolution of their conversations and either diverging or conflicting or at least, debated opinions have produced the results of those coaches' firings, of those changeovers. There's an interesting dynamic that occurs when there are two people who are in 50% control of a $1 billion organization like an NFL franchise. And that's what we have here in New York. Interestingly, of course, in recent years, Tisch more receded from the limelight. John Mara and the Mara family, of course, the Giants royal family, so to speak, and the founding family of the franchise. And so Mara, especially now with Tisch reseated in the background, has moved as prominently as ever into that role and into that limelight. But I still am curious, and I still want to know how patient Steve Tisch and Jonathan Tisch and that family is feeling about this current situation. Because when John Mara says he has confidence in the personnel and the decisions and the development there, I raise an eyebrow because I look at Evan Neal and the fact that it doesn't look like there's a plan to play a number 7 overall first round pick, and that we're just talking around the idea that this guy has a chance to get on the field when it appears he really doesn't at all. And I'm looking at Kayvon Thibodeau hurt and out and on injured reserve. I'm looking at Andrew Thomas hurt and out for the season. I'm looking at Daniel Jones benched in week 7. And I'm looking at Saquon Barkley, a player I didn't want to leave, running all over the team, embarrassing them. If you get a chance, you probably don't want to watch it, but the mic'd up on the Philadelphia Eagles Twitter account is a Giants horror movie. It's everything that you didn't want to happen. Now, of course, we do want to talk about how the Giants are going to make this better, where they're going to go from here. And what I want to hear from you, Giants fans, in this chat more than ever is I want to hear what you think of what John Mara had to say. I want to hear what you think about whether he's saying the right thing and doing the right thing if he indeed sticks with the general manager and the coach coming out of this next season into 2025. And I want to hear your preferences and your belief in if you do think it's the right thing to bring them back. I want to know why. I want to know what you think are the key building blocks. And if you feel like turnover needs to happen, I want to know why you believe change is required as well. Now, of course, grateful to everybody who's tuned in and continuing to grow this community here on the YouTube channel, PL on NFL, and on the Talking Ball with Pat Leonard podcast on the Believe Network. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, thank you. Please join us next time on YouTube as well. If you're watching or participating or asking questions, thank you so much for being here, for participating. Please, when you're here, while you're watching live, give us a thumbs up. Hit that like button. That helps drive engagement here on YouTube. Also, as I see a super chat rolling in, I believe that was D Kit. Let's see who it is. Yes, it looks like it's D Kit. Thank you so much, D Kit. We will get to that shortly. If you want to purchase a super chat, as D Kit just did, it will elevate your comment or question to the top of the thread. So that means I will answer your question or address your comment immediately or next in the queue. That's a great way to support the channel. The best way to support our channel, though, and our podcast is through our sponsors. And we are so grateful to MyBookie. MyBookie.ag is the number one place for sports betting, especially this football season. They have risk-free Thursday bets and also a great promotion running with my promo code Pat's Picks. There's a link on my social media profiles, all of my social media. If you click on that link and you deposit $50 or more all the way up to $1,000, you'll get a 100% match plus a $10 casino chip. All you got to do is enter the promo code Pat's Picks. That's PATSPICKS. And I got to tell you guys, I've been cooking on my Pat's Picks. Listen, sometimes you say every squirrel finds a nut someday, but I've been rolling. I mean, listen to these numbers I've got going on right now. Last week, week 7, 12-3 against the spread overall, 3-0 with my Pat's Picks. And in the last 2 weeks, 22-6-1 against the spread, 5-1 with Pat's Picks on MyBookie. So use that promo code. If you're already a member, use the MyBookie Plus loyalty rewards program. Sign up. You get exclusive giveaways, promotions, cash back in your account. Bet on football, bet on underdogs, bet on the props that I throw out every week. I love my Giants sprinkles that I toss out every Saturday. Keep an eye for that. This week, the Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown hit. That was automatic. This week, I'm telling you already, the Justin Fields anytime touchdown, the rushing touchdown is coming. Even though Russell Wilson is starting this game, Justin Fields still will be used as a runner, still dangerous. Keep an eye out for that. But MyBookie is the place to play. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Also brought to you by Boom Chaga. Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink is a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants, and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to reduce inflammation, lower cholesterol, and improve immune and heart health with its beta glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today, and on your subscribe and save order, use the code TalkinBall25. The code is TalkinBall25, or you can use this QR code right here on your screen. And at boomchaga.com, you will get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month supply costs you only $30. Again, subscribe and save. Talking Ball 25 is the code. Use that. You could always cancel if you need to or want to. No restrictions, no obligations, no penalties for canceling. But I still think you will stick with it because it's a terrific product. I drink it every morning, honestly. Not just saying it because it's the ad. I really did. I started working with Rich and Boom Chaga, and you guys will meet Rich here on the podcast soon as well. Rich Funk of Boom Chaga. Great guy, but a great product. And frankly, if I didn't believe in it and I didn't use it, I wouldn't be advertising it to you. So boomchaga.com. Start feeling the difference today. Also, Talking Ball with Pat Leonard is brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee, an all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar, convenient for on-the-go coffee drinkers. Takes me less than 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 iced coffee, a minute more to make a hot coffee or latte, and it's great as a mixer for espresso martinis. Go to estate98.com/talkingball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. And before I get into D-Kit's Super Chat and we get rolling, it's time for our Estate 98 trivia question. So as all of our loyal followers and listeners know, our Estate 98 trivia is a trivia we do every chat. And what happens is I will ask you a Giants trivia question, and the first person who answers it correctly in the chat will get a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee mailed to you. If you are the first person to answer this correctly in the chat, you need to direct message me on Instagram. The handle is PL on NFL, and send me an address or a PO box that I should send that to you, and I will fire it out, and you will get that Estate 98 in your mail at your door, and you can try it out, and I promise you'll love it, and then you'll start going to that estate98.com/talkingball to order more. Hope you guys are ready. Here is the Estate 98 Giants trivia question of the night here on Talkin' Ball live with Pat Leonard. All right, Dexter Lawrence, Giants star defensive tackle, leads the NFL with 9 sacks at the moment. So that is the third most sacks by a Giant through 7 games in a season, 9. Who are the first two? So which two players had more sacks through their first 7 games in a season than Dexter Lawrence for the Giants? Again, which two Giants players all time had more than Dexter Lawrence's 9 sacks through the first 7 games of a season? As we watch the answers roll in, I expect somebody to get this quicker than a lot of people get my trivia questions. I've been stepping my game up lately. I know some people have been struggling there. All right, let's see. First couple answers. D-Kit says Lawrence Taylor and JPP. Incorrect. Good guess, though. Strider says Michael Strahan and Lawrence Taylor. No. Now, remember, the person who guesses it correctly, you have to have both names correct in the same comment. So you have to have both names in your comment. So if you get 1 out of 2, that's not enough. If you get, if you get 2 different ones in 2 different comments, but they're not in the same comment, that doesn't count. You need to give me both names in the same answer. No one has it yet. So I will get to the super chats and I will go back later to see who drops the correct answer in the queue. All right. D-Kit says, Pat, please do not tell me that Jones is lashing out about the lack of accountability. All this team has done is make excuses for him. I wouldn't call it lashing out, D-Kid. I do think he's made some pointed comments, though, that they're hard not to interpret as him getting a little bit tired of always being the scapegoat. I'm on his side in that, and I don't mean on his side in that he's not doing anything wrong and that he's playing fine. That's not what I'm saying at all. And listen, they were trying to replace him this year. They'll be replacing him next year, I'm sure, based on the trajectory of this going. So it's headed that way in that direction anyway. But I would agree with the sentiment here that, like, if Daniel Jones is saying, I'm going to be the team guy and I do have to make more plays, which is what he's saying. He is saying that. He's not saying like it's not on me. Like Malik Nabers kind of implied, well, I was open. I don't know, basically what was left out of that, it sounded like, was I don't know about anybody else. I don't know if that's what he intended to say. That's what it sounded like. But Jones isn't saying stuff like that. And certainly they've given him more chances than a lot of people on the outside believe they should have, including the contract, which is what we were talking about earlier, for sure. 82 million reasons why the Giants have shown more confidence in him than most people would. But I personally would side with Daniel on the idea of this is way more than just him and him getting benched. Like I asked Brian Daboll at one point after that game, it might've been on Monday or it was Sunday, but the idea of like, why didn't you try to change your offensive line in the game before you changed your quarterback? Like, why was it only the quarterback? Why did you not change the left tackle who was getting overwhelmed and who might not even start this game this week, right? It could be Chris Hubbard at left tackle instead of Josh Azudu this week, despite what we've heard so far. So, yeah, lashing out is not the word I would use. And I understand a lot of Giants fans just want to see Daniel go and are siding with the organization in that debate. But to me, I think siding with the Giants as if nothing is wrong other than Daniel Jones is not a correct position. That's my opinion. All right, Scorpio, what's up? He says, I can't stand how Daboll has not prepared this team for 2 seasons. He even says it in his post game. How in the world are you not establishing the run? Scorpio, that's one thing that really gets me is after these games when he says we put in our preparation, we prepare the right way, we need the results to show up. You're not preparing the right way if you're getting your ass kicked. Sorry, you're not, and I think that there's a lot of cleanup on aisle 6 going on in Daboll's favor right now. People saying that there's nothing wrong with the play calling. There's blame for the receiver drops. There's blame for the quarterback. There's blame for the offensive line. There's blame for Deonte Banks. There's no blame for the head coach. There's no blame for the general manager. It's so strange. So, it's only the players. The coach isn't in charge of getting the players ready. The coach isn't in charge of making the players play hard. I hope you guys understand when that's happening, right? When you see kind of like the propaganda push or the narrative push from the team side or from the team friendly side. I hope what I'm bringing to you guys is something that's a little bit closer, something closer to objective. And yeah, Scorpio, to your point, thank you for the super chat too. Not establishing the run in the first game when the offensive line is not in a position to protect against that pass rush and protect in general without Andrew Thomas, I think is malpractice as well. And, looking at this matchup that's coming up with the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's a scary one for the Giants, a scary one for Brian Daboll's play calling and his tendencies and the fact that, establishing the run, not an easy thing to do against Pittsburgh at all. Yes, you can throw on them better than you can run on them, but Pittsburgh's only allowing 14.4 points a game, I think it is. Giants averaging something like 14.1. So basically, the Steelers allowing 14 points a game, the Giants scoring 14 points a game. Meanwhile, the Steelers are scoring about 9 points more per outing than the Giants. The Steelers have scored over 30 points in their last 2 games, one with Justin Fields at quarterback, one with Russell Wilson at quarterback, beating down on a Jets team that was thumping the Giants during the large part of their scrimmage together and their joint practice together in the summer. And, one interesting stat that stood out to me, and we'll get more into the matchup too as we talk here, but something interesting I found looking at the Steelers quarter by quarter scoring. The Pittsburgh Steelers have not allowed a single point in the third quarter this season. So the Steelers have actually been outscored in the first quarters of games, 41-19. Then they outscored teams in the second and in the fourth for sure by about, 20, 24 and 22 points per game respectively. But in third quarters, the Steelers have outscored their opponents 46-0. So the Giants, who have scored 0 and 3 points in the first half of their last two games, they'd better change that first half tendency around soon, because the Steelers haven't allowed a single point to an opposing team all season in the third. So if the Giants don't get this fixed rapidly, you're looking at a potential shutout into the fourth quarter. I mean, honestly, based on the team you're playing with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Now, the good news is the Giants' slow starts, of course, matched by the Steelers' slow starts. So they've each only scored 19 points per game in the first quarter this season. So maybe even if the Giants take a little bit to find their footing, maybe the Giants can buy some time with the Steelers not getting the score up to anything unreachable, and then can get themselves in a flow. So, hostile environment, difficult opponent, strong defense, a much better defense than the Eagles defense that just dominated the Giants. So it's a scary matchup. I think the one favorable thing you have to look at is Russell Wilson. I do think might put the ball up in the air a little bit, make some opportunities for the Giants defense. Now, this is a crazy stat. The Giants defense does not have an interception this season. Let me say that again. The Giants defense does not have an interception this season. Not only that, they're ranked second to last in the NFL in allowing yards per rush, 5.2 per carry. So they allow 5.2 yards per carry, and they don't have an interception on defense this season. Now, like I said, I do think Russell Wilson, talking about Giants sprinkles, maybe Russell Wilson is an odds-on favorite to give the Giants one, give them a turnover, give them an interception on a jump ball that he underthrows, something like that in this game. So I think that if the Giants do win this game, stay competitive in this game, make it a game late into the fourth quarter, I think that will be a reason why. But like I said, the Steelers are aces in the third quarter. The Giants have to do better in the first half of their games, especially starting Monday night, because then right off of that, you have Washington coming to MetLife the next week. And Jaden Daniels has a rib injury, might not play this week, but doesn't sound like it's serious enough to hold him out of that Giants game. We will see. But assuming he comes back, Washington looks like a much better team than the one that the Giants faced in week 2 that they barely lost to there. So something to watch and something to monitor is the fact that this Monday night game is an enormous one, and the Giants need to get their stuff together fast. All right. Looks like we have a winner to our Estate 98 trivia question. So the trivia question was, Dexter Lawrence has 9 sacks through 7 games. Who are the 2 players who had more sacks as a Giant through 7 games in a season? And the answer is, yes, these are the 2 names. Thank you, Will. Will gets it correct. The answer is Michael Strahan and Leonard Marshall. Michael Strahan in 2001 had 12.5 sacks through 7 games, and Leonard Marshall in 1985 had 11.5 sacks in the first 7 games of that season. So, Will, congratulations on winning. Please direct message me your address or a P.O. box, wherever you want me to mail the Estate 98 coffee, and I will have it sent out to you forthwith. Congratulations on winning the Estate 98 Giants trivia. You will love this all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar, convenient for on-the-go coffee drinkers, iced coffee, hot coffee or latte, great mixer for espresso martinis. Will, congratulations. DM me your address. We'll get that out to you. And I believe, who was it? John last chat won the trivia question, did not send me his address. So you guys have to remember to do that, or I can't get it out to you. All right, let's get to our next super chat here. D Kit again checking in, says, with the way defenses are playing us right now, squatting on rounds and not honoring certain parts of the field, I do not see us scoring points unless we start getting some respect in the passing game. Definitely. I do think you do have to try to establish the run, even though the Steelers are very good at stopping it. Of course, knowing Brian Daboll and knowing that he's also your best offensive player, Malik Nabers will be a focal point of this game. It's going to be, you know, in addition to the coach making excuses essentially for Nabers saying I was open after the game, this is tracking towards feeding the ball constantly to number one, trying to scheme up plays to get him free, get him open, get him in catch and run opportunities, to get Daniel Jones easy completion so Nabers can make a play with the ball in his hands. But the Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary running game, you need to get that established. You need to protect your offensive line and your quarterback, if nothing else, with the run game and with the threat of the run. But certainly what's missing from the Giants offense is its functionality, its explosiveness, its pass protection. A couple weeks ago, we were able to say they weren't making enough explosive plays. And certainly that was a problem in the Philadelphia game too, especially when you watch Saquon Barkley make so many on the ground on the other side and A.J. Brown with that touchdown. But what we saw in the Eagles game was a lack of functionality across the board. It was a reminder and kind of a mirror image in a lot of ways of what last season looked like with Andrew Thomas hurt and down. It was like, okay, we've suddenly gone to non-functional. And I personally, because I'm around this team daily and I do this for a living, and I see this all the time, and I feel like I'm as observant of this as anything. I think Daniel Jones's clock speeds up, and when he doesn't trust his pass protection, and when he has justifiably so doesn't trust it, everything speeds up and everything gets much worse, from his reads to his accuracy to his ability to stay in the pocket. And, I would say the entire offensive line in that last game wasn't good enough. It wasn't like the right side played well and the left didn't. The entire line was not good enough in that game. It was a complete shutdown, and Daniel never had a chance. The Giants never had a chance. The offense never had a chance. But the scheme also didn't help them. Not committing to the run didn't help them. And D-Kid, I think what you hit on there, explosiveness. Brian Daboll spent the first several weeks of the season downplaying how important it is to make explosive plays, saying that, oh, well, I have all these stats that say that a lot of teams don't make that many explosive plays in the grand scheme of things. And now he's talking about how they really need to make explosive plays. So it went from not being a big deal that we were saying this needs to get better to now this is the reason we're not scoring. Well, we were telling you that in the preseason, in training camp, in week 1 and week 2. So the head coach has come around. All right, let's get to the next chat here. Daniel Hirsch. Daniel, what's up? Welcome back. Thank you. He says all Daniel Jones needs is a good offensive line to be good. Now all Daboll needs is a good quarterback to be good. I don't want to wait to find out. Daboll has been the sole cause of more losses than I can count. See, Daniel, I agree more with you there. And again, this isn't throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. Like, this isn't it. Two things can be true. Brian Daboll can have had a good 2022 season and has had times where he has schemed things up well, right? And it can also be true that really, especially since starting in the second half of that playoff run season, excluding the Vikings and the Colts game, and then especially last year, they have hit the skids and he has not had an answer or a solution to stop it or to address it or to stop the bleeding or to, like the Seahawks game that they played and that they won. That was finally a sign of not just a victory and a big win like it felt at the time a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. It was also like you could feel that the players felt, okay, we finally got to what we are, or we finally got to what we can be, what we've been building towards. This is what it is. This is what it looks like. Now let's take it and let's keep going. And the way that they came home against Cincinnati and Philadelphia and just got smashed and spanked and humbled, and they've gone back to the drawing board, but not just saying, "Oh, we struggled." I mean, 119 yards of offense against the Eagles, Deonte Banks quitting on the field, and Daboll not benching him and not publicly pointing it out in any kind of harsh way. I mean, my goodness. So, I think the management of the games as well, Daniel, is a huge concern. Like in the Cincinnati game, how could John Mara not see the two different approaches from first half to second half from his head coach there, and how one was kind of in reaction to the other, and how it wasn't a part of any grand plan. It was just a reaction to what he saw in the moment. Um, I think that Daboll is trying hard to keep the locker room. And I think that his lack of public criticism of players, and I've seen this before. This is not about Brian Daboll specifically. It's not personal to him. I've seen this from coaches before, in many different places with the Giants as well, where coaches understand that if they lose a locker room, that's an easy way to lose their job. And, Daboll has lost a lot of coaches in his time here. He's had people above him, certainly bosses, questioning him in a lot of different ways. He had his general manager on the headsets monitoring him for 4 weeks last year. A ton of coaches left the last 2 years of their own accord. They didn't want to work here anymore. But last year, he made it through to this third season because he didn't lose the locker room. The players felt like he had put them in a good position in 2022. It was the first time in a while that they felt like they had made any real progress as an organization and a franchise and as players and everything. And so they felt like it's still in there. We see it. He still got it. Let's go. But, I think he's playing a dangerous game right now in dancing around, holding these guys accountable. I don't like it. I think it's going to snowball on itself, and not because I don't want it to. I don't want to be proven right or anything like that. Like, that's not why I'm in this. I'm just doing reporting, and I also have seen a lot of situations like this around here, unfortunately. Rick checking in with 50 bones from Canada. Thank you so much, Rick. And it looks like you're rolling the super chats in here. So I really, really, really appreciate you here. Rick says, Pat, you are on your own island as a reporter. Your honesty with this team that was once the New York Giants, there is no sign of anything New York Giants anymore, is the only levity an old New York Giants fan like myself needs. You are barking up all the right trees. Daboll's arrogance, the cowardly snickering, Joe Schoen asking his children who he thinks they would pick. Mara is lost. He is and never will be close to the owner his father was. Everyone blames Jones. Jones will be a fine, mediocre quarterback somewhere else. He's not the problem. It's the whole fundamental drafting of non-gritty players across the board. Look at the Steelers. They are the gritty Steelers during their weakest times. The unrecognizable ghost of a franchise the last 10 years might as well be from Bakerfield. Thank you for doing what you do, man. Rick, I can't thank you enough for all of those super chats, for all of those comments, and for the compliments of the work that I'm doing here and at the New York Daily News, here on the Believe Network, on the Talking Ball with Pat Leonard podcast. Rick, thank you so much for saying that, because it's easy in my position especially when you're going against the grain in a lot of ways, it's easy to focus only on the people either mocking you or trolling you or being nasty or telling you you're wrong or telling you you're having an agenda. And it's easy to read those comments and get frustrated and focused on the negative or the critics, right? In that sense. But I want to take a moment out to thank you, Rick, and thank everybody who's here tonight for watching, listening, participating, for supporting as you did just now, Rick. I can't thank you enough. I think what makes this a fun exercise and a great podcast and a great this is something I really enjoy doing with you guys, is that it's such a great exchange of ideas. And also, I think most people here respect that whether we agree or disagree, we're all coming from a place of trying to say something that's thoughtful, that's grounded in whether it's our informed opinion, whether you're a diehard Giants fan or a season ticket holder for 40 years, or somebody like me who's covering this team for a living, or you're a blogger or a podcaster or a content creator yourself. Like, all of that goes into the pot. And I think it's a great exchange of ideas and a great community that we have here. And, Rick, I really appreciate all your words. That was really well thought out. That was some good writing right there, to be honest. As a writer myself, as I was sitting here reading it, I thought, um, man, sounds like Rick could do my job. That's what I was saying reading that. But you're right about the drafting of gritty players. It's interesting you say that because the Giants, like, you can tell Brian Daboll and what he's trying to push this week to buy himself more time and to get ownership to hear him saying that more time is required, is this idea of the Steelers are good because they've built it through consistency and sticking with people through the years and standing by their formula and their philosophy and their process and their general managers and coaches. And they haven't had a high turnover because they have, patience and success. And it's like, yeah, but to Rick's point, look at the players they draft, look at the quality of the players, the toughness of the players, and you sustain consistency when you build and win. Like Mike Tomlin, the whole stat of him never finishing under 500 and always getting his teams back over that line or up to that line. And, always seeming like he has a quality team, even when the roster doesn't look like he should on paper. That's a big deal. That stat matters a lot. And that's honestly, this is something I think that is probably going to inform my game preview, is that you want to be the Steelers. You want your owners and your team and your franchise to stand by you and remain confident in your process and not turn things over. Then how about you win some damn games? How about you punch people back in the mouth when they punch you instead of rolling over at home and losing 28-3 and getting embarrassed nationally and having Saquon essentially rubbing your noses in it by taking the high ground and not going back in to get his personal record because he just doesn't need to, because he already proved his point. How about you be a respectable team on the field and an organization and a franchise that builds towards something, rather than going with 3 wins, 4 wins, 6 wins, 5 wins, and then whining that somebody should show more patience because you'll eventually get it right. How about you just get it right? Or how about you put a competent product on the field and stop making excuses about injuries or drops or whatever else is? Stop pointing the finger at everybody else. Point the finger at yourself and figure it out. Hold yourself accountable and hold your team accountable. Rick, you're getting me fired up, but that is because you supported the channel so well, and I'm really fired up about all that support coming in from you, Rick. Thank you so much. Most Illest checks in, says Giants have Nabers and a pass rush. That's about it. Yeah, it's they have some young players that they feel like can grow into something. Drew Phillips, being one of them at slot corner, but Tyrod Tracy maybe as a running back. Newbin maybe at safety, but right now, those little dots of optimism are being drowned right now by the mistakes and miscues and swings and misses of this regime, from general manager to head coach on down. And that's why I think, I want to hear from you guys here, but like I hear John Maris say that, and it means something. And that's why I wrote about it and said it, just like I did last night when I was there at the Paley Center. By the way, you guys will probably like this as Giants fans. Go check out go check out the documentary. It's called The Duke, Wellington Mara's Giant Life, and it's airing on Friday night, NFL Network, but also on all of Giants' social media channels and profiles. You can find it. Obviously, game one for the Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series is Friday night, so you're probably not watching that documentary instead of the World Series, but check it out. We had private screening basically with the entire Mara family. I was honored to be there. Susan McDonald, who is John's sister and Wellington's eldest daughter, spoke extremely eloquently. And it was really her passion project putting this together and shepherding it, and NFL Films putting it together and getting it to the finish line to honor her late father and his contributions to the NFL, and alongside in conjunction with the Giants, 100-year anniversary this season. And so kudos and credit to Susan McDonald. She did a great job, especially how she spoke about it prior to them showing that. A little levity added to the moment, by the way, like for everybody who thinks that this is not a relationship business, this was actually a pretty funny moment. John Mara spoke to us after the film was shown, and it was a group of reporters. So the last time John Mara spoke was on August 1st at the unveiling of a mural at a hospital in Hackensack. And at the time, he hadn't spoken in a long time about football. I just went right into it, asking him about, the Giants and, Schoen and Daboll and the team. So this time we get into the press conference and Mara's waiting for someone to ask a question. And so I started off by asking him, what was your favorite part of the documentary about your father? And so that kicks off about 4 questions about Wellington Mara, about the documentary, about the film, and John's feelings about his father. And he got emotional talking about looking at the interactions of the players with his father, especially late in his life. And so eventually, about 4 questions in, another reporter, Neil Best of Newsday, asks, he says, John, he pivots to football and he says, I'm sure you're not something along the lines of, I'm sure you're not pleased with where this season is going. And Mara cuts him off and he says, you were the last person I expected to ask me that question, this line of questioning. And he turns to me, basically says, like, I had another idea of who might ask it. And I say to John Mara, I said, did you lose a bet? And he laughs and he says, I did lose a bet. I did. That was really funny. He was expecting it to come from me. And for once, it did not. But John knows who's bringing it. That's for sure. So that was funny. By the way, before I get back into the question queue here, wanted to tell you guys who's going to Pittsburgh, by the way. Anybody in the chat going to Pittsburgh for the game? Let me see down here in the chat. All right. Because now I'm asking this for a reason. If any of you guys are going to Pittsburgh, I've got a table at CityWorks in Market Square for 9:00 on Sunday night. And it's downtown. Like, I'm staying downtown. CityWorks is downtown. I know the South Side is a lot cooler of an area, but I'm flying in, taking the long cab ride or Uber ride into the city. I'm not trying to take another 15, 20-minute Uber ride. I'm going to walk wherever I'm going. But it's this big place with a lot of TVs. And at 9 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night, I believe it's Cowboys-Niners as the Sunday night game. I got a 10-person high top table there. I got a reservation for 9:00 Eastern. Any of you guys, any of you talking ballers who are in Pittsburgh this weekend are welcome to join me. I know Joey B has been saying he's going to be out there and he's looking to catch up. And I told him that I would try to organize a Talkin' Ball meetup. So this is me letting you guys know if anyone's going to be in Pittsburgh, 9 p.m. Eastern, Sunday night, CityWorks downtown in Market Square. I believe the address is like 2 PPG Place, something like that. If you have any questions about it, you could direct message me on Instagram on PL on NFL. But that's where I'll be from 9 p.m. for at least a couple hours watching Niners Cowboys, hanging out, hopefully talking some Giants with you all. All right, let's get back into the queue. Thank you again, by the way. Just want to say to D-Kit, Scorpio, Daniel, Rick especially, and most illest as well. D-Kit with the 2 super chats too. Thank you so much. All right. Let's get back into the queue. Oh, John. Okay. I see your note there saying that you direct messaged me on IG and I didn't answer it. Okay. I will get to that. That must be something I have to accept that request, and I will get to that immediately. And you will get your Estate 98 coffee. Thank you very much for checking in. Was just looking for it. All right. Rick says, what about Brian Daboll's resume suggests he can repeat the success he had with Josh Allen? That's looking like the outlier in his career. I agree, Rick. I think that's a rhetorical question you're asking in the sense of, Brian Daboll's other stops, what we have seen. I mean, it hasn't been anything earth-shattering. The one time he became a hot coaching candidate was because he and Josh Allen were working together. But by and large, you look at his stops, see, as an offensive coordinator, he was in Cleveland for 2 years, Miami for 1, and Kansas City for 1. And then, so that was 3 teams in 4 years, didn't stick at any of them. Ends up going back to New England as an assistant coach, 3 years as the tight ends coach, 1 year at Alabama where he leaves for Buffalo, but don't know if he was going to have a second year at Alabama if he didn't leave for Buffalo there either. And then ends up hooking on with Josh Allen, and that lands him the Giants head coaching job. But as you mentioned there, Rick, not a track record of being able to turn things around without the big fella up there in Buffalo. So I agree with you there. Antonio, good to see you. Do I expect the Giants to re-sign Duke Shelley or maybe pick up Trey Herndon, who was with us through camp with Hawkins, Flott, and Adoree all not practicing today? I would think Shelley could be an option there. I wouldn't think Herndon. With the Giants signing Armand Watts to the active roster, do you expect them to make Jordan Riley inactive this week? Yeah, I think deck chairs on the Titanic there, Antonio, not demeaning your question there, but whether Watts is active or Riley's active, I don't even think it matters. I don't think it'll help them one way or another. Watts, though, is a veteran and you would hope is a better player than Riley. So it is possible he could be active. So we will see. Yeah, I mean, Riley did not play well in the snaps that he got against the Eagles. Do I expect all the players that did not practice today to play Monday besides Dexter Lawrence? Good question, Antonio. I do have the injury report ready to give you guys. So the players who did not participate in practice on Thursday, October 24th, Cordell Flott with a groin, Trey Hawkins with an ankle, and Adoree Jackson with a neck. All 3 of those are corners. Sounds like Adoree, I don't think Adoree's going to play, and it doesn't sound like Flott's going to play either. Daboll said he wasn't going to rule him out, but he's not optimistic. Don't know if Hawkins is going to. We will see. But yes, that's 3 corners down. So that has them severely shorthanded there. Jamie Gillen, the punter, did not practice. Daboll made it sound like he was going to try to kick. We never saw him kick. And I saw him, he had left practice long before it was over. So I don't think he's going to play as well. Dexter Lawrence, a DNP with a hip. I expect him to play. Ty Summers, the special teamer with an ankle. There's a chance that he gets, upgraded to limited and eventually plays. It looked bad in the game. Not sure how bad it actually is. We didn't see him on the field today. So I'm continuing to monitor that. Obviously, it was bad enough for him to get carted off, but, hopeful that they're not losing a special teamer because another special teamer, Bryce Ford Wheaton, was limited today with an Achilles. Don't like hearing that limited with an Achilles. Don't like hearing that at all. We'll get an update on that on Friday, whether that's something that's, serious or not. Brian Burns was added, so he was limited with a groin and an Achilles. Again, not something I want to hear with Brian Burns there, Achilles injury in addition to the groin injury. To me, this is just my opinion. No one's told me this. I don't think Burns is going to play in this game. Like Now, again, this is not a report. I'm not reporting this. No one told me this. Okay. This is just me looking at him limping out of the game last Sunday, looking at him limping out of the last two games, looking at how I feel like he's really, really struggling physically and fighting through it. And I think he needs a week. And I know they don't have any ground to give here. Like they have to win. But, if you can, if he can't go, if he's like 50% right now or not even, if you can rest him a week and then try to play him in a real way next week at home against Washington, which could be a game to save your hides, despite what John Mara said. I mean, if they get blown out on Monday night and they come back and lose big to Washington at home, I mean, what are we even looking at here? So, I keep an eye on Brian Burns. I mean, I'm impressed that he's on the field. I love it. I love seeing it. And I was even asking him, what the heck are you even doing out there? How'd you even get back on the field? Just a lot of recovery going on for him. But, I'm not sure playing for him on Sunday or on Monday, rather, in Pittsburgh would result in anything positive. But we'll see. Keep monitoring that. And then Jalen Hyatt, full participation with a rib. That was interesting considering it sounds like he has a cracked rib, according to Daryl Slater's report. Antonio says, do you expect the Giants to be sellers at the trade deadline? Could you see them trading Slayton, Ojulari, etc.? Yes. Yes, I do. I think so. We have, let's see. We have Pittsburgh and then we have the Washington game. Yeah. I mean, especially if you're going into this deadline with 2 wins. I mean, yes. Slayton, Ojulari, trying to think if there's anybody else I'm missing there. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's any players I'm missing that they might be able to get rid of. But yes, I think Darius Slayton makes a lot of sense. See, the tricky thing with Aziz is, I mean, you want to remain somewhat competitive as a team. At least John Mara typically does. And if you trade Darius Slayton and Aziz Ojulari, what are you left with? I mean, Aziz has been a better player than Kayvon Thibodeau. I mean, I know he's not a perfect player. Nobody is, but he's been better than Kayvon. So you fire or you trade him, you trade Slayton. And who's playing for Slayton then? Hyatt? He banged up, not playing well. I guess, I don't, you signing Hodgins to the active roster, just playing him. I mean, they're in a tough spot there. But yes, I mean, if you're Joe Schoen, you're trying to accrue capital for next year's draft to go get a quarterback. Obviously, from what we hear, some reports that this quarterback class is not the best class to need a quarterback in. So Ken says, great job with last question Monday, pressing Daboll on Nabers post-game comments. Curious if Nabers had any clarification or restatement this week. He is scheduled to talk tomorrow, Friday, the 25th, Ken. So I'm looking forward to that. What I gather from having a couple conversations is that I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but I think he's going to say something along the lines of that he did not intend to implicate anybody else. He was just answering a question regarding what he was doing and whether the Eagles were able to stop him or not, is my guess is what he was going to say. But you and I both know that what he said sounded like something that was putting the onus on other people in the offense. So that's what it was doing, whether he intended it to or not. Jay Wordsman says, watching Rams Vikings, and I see next year's Giants quarterback Sam Darnold. He looks great. Or the Vikings re-sign Darnold and trade J.J. McCarthy to the Giants. This is the solution. Please tell Joe Schoen for me. Jay, I love what you're saying, but I think they just needed to draft J.J. in the first place or do something like that rather than, now hoping to get one of these guys next year, because bottom line, I think Darnold, if you're Sam Darnold, you coming back to New York, you had that experience with the Jets, you finally escape to Minnesota, and you're playing for this coach and coordinator in this offense, and you're coming where? Back to New York with Brian Daboll on year 4? Eek. No, I think, Benny Fowler actually said this on our podcast a couple of weeks ago. He thinks what they should do in Minnesota is just franchise Sam Darnold. And then, you have him under contract and JJ McCarthy, and you can do the handoff, right? As you're grooming JJ. And also Darnold, you have to admit, or have to believe and think that he's going to, first of all, that's another year where he gets paid well. And second of all, what Kevin O'Connell and Darnold have found in each other there as a pairing, that's something he's going to want as much of that as possible, as long as he can. And then next year, if Darnold continues on this track, great. If JJ looks like the guy too, then maybe you have a trade deadline trade that you can make, and you could get something big at a deadline for a guy like Darnold if you're the Vikings in that scenario, or you have a really good backup quarterback, but that'd be a good problem for Minnesota to have. I think that for them, you're not trying to get rid of one of these quarterbacks at this point. At first I was thinking, it's JJ's team. It is JJ's team. I mean, it's going to be JJ's team. And so initially I was thinking, well, Darnold's going to be available. You let him go elsewhere. And that still could come to pass. But I do like the idea of the Vikings kind of preserving and protecting themselves, and also Darnold continuing to work and develop in a place that appreciates him and understands his talents too. But that'll be interesting to see, Jay. I mean, could Matthew Stafford be a guy next year for the Giants, right? Because maybe the draft's not working out for them as far as getting a quarterback, and it's slim pickings everywhere else. But can they go get a guy like Matt Stafford? Doing that mid-season this year, does that make a lot of sense? Versus next year when if Daboll and Schoen really are coming back and they absolutely have to win games or else. Then again, if Matt Stafford is, going to be leaving Los Angeles and traded from Los Angeles, is he going to want to be a Giant? Is he going to be interested in continuing to play if he's coming to a team that won 2 or 3 or 4 games the year prior, right? To finish his career, coming with his family across the country? I don't know. Okay. Looks like Gabe is flustered and upset. He says, Pat, how bad do you want Schoen and Daboll fired? And for the love of all things holy, let's stop asking the same question of have you talked to ownership and what are their thoughts? Because we all know Daboll is not going to give you an answer. Those are private conversations. So, Gabe, just so you know, it is not my job to assume that a coach is going to give an answer or not give an answer. My job is to ask the questions that I believe either need to be answered or will provide information that provide clarity to a situation. Also, I do believe that accountability matters. So from my standpoint, whether it's coach, GM, player, agent, whoever it is, I think holding them accountable to their actions, their words, their responsibilities in their job is important and matters. And I do not personally want anybody fired. I resent that comment, to be honest with you. I think that makes like a personal assumption that I am eager for somebody to lose their job. And I think that completely ignores not only all the work that I do on this, but I think it also ignores the professionalism that I've worked my entire life to build. And that is, working very hard at being someone who is grounding their opinions and their work in facts, in research, in relationships, in objectivity and fairness as much as I can. And so, have to admit, don't appreciate comments like that. But I know you're just frustrated, and I appreciate you, Gabe. Elias says, in the locker room, is the defense frustrated at Jones and the offense, especially after Daboll threw him under the bus with explosive playmaker comment? I have not seen any offense versus defense comments or anger directly. I have seen that what I thought was interesting was, let me find John Mara's comment on this. It was kind of interesting. He said when he told us he wanted to talk about Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll and put his confidence behind them. And he said, after he says that, he says, I think those are the questions you guys were most concerned about. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not going to dissect individual players' performances or the offense versus the defense or anything like that. So, that was the implication, I think, from the Giants co-owner that's he's well aware of which side of the ball is carrying the team, and that the head coach's side of the ball is the one, limping to the finish line. All right, let's see. Elias, thank you for that support as always. All right, let's see. Hey, Barb, what's going on? Great to see you as always. Will says, hey, Pat, follow up to my question last week. It looks like Mara gave quite a vote of confidence to Schoen and Daboll. That said, I am blown away that we continue to risk a Jones injury. Thoughts? So the Jones injury question that you just asked, here's what I would say to that. And I would say that as far as risking the injury guarantee, Russell Wilson is fascinatingly the opponent this week in Pittsburgh. And why that's interesting is that you may already know this, or most of you may already be aware of this. But last year, when Russell Wilson was on the Denver Broncos, they benched him because they had a $37 million injury guarantee for 2024 in his contract. So what happened to Russell Wilson last year, gets a contract extension, plays 2 years in Denver, but gets benched midseason to avoid him suffering or sustaining an injury that's going to trigger a $37 million injury guarantee for this year. And then he gets cut. They eat a bunch of dead cap. And then he ends up signing with a new team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Giants are now in the exact same position the Denver Broncos were in with Russell Wilson. $23 million next year instead of 37, like the Broncos had to think about, but still the same situation. Listen, I think very much, Will, that this is going to be a factor. It always has been a factor in the back of their minds. How could it not be, especially as they have wavered, if not just shown outwardly that they don't truly support this quarterback in a lot of ways. I'm talking about the front office. And I think in the end, Will, you're going to see him out of the lineup, and that this is going to be a major reason why, in addition to the fact that they're just going to be completely out of it. I think that, I was actually thinking this week, when are we going to see Tommy DeVito? Because Drew Lock, we've seen a little bit of. Nothing changed when he went in there the other day. And we'll see if it gets better if he goes in again. But at what point are we going to see Tommy DeVito in uniform? At what point are we going to see Tommy DeVito in a game or active and on the sideline and eligible to come into a game? Because, sooner or later, there's going to be no reason to be playing Daniel Jones based on where this season is going, just for the injury guarantee standpoint, because they're not going anywhere. They're not going to win anything. So why lock yourself in there, right? Unless the co-owners believe that this is still their quarterback. Like John Mara would not get into discussing Daniel Jones and the quarterback. He wouldn't get into talking about any players. He said that he wasn't going to dissect any players' performance individually, though he did say regarding Daniel, he said, I'm not going to get into critiquing individual players. Obviously, we're struggling on offense right now, But there are a lot of reasons for that, and I don't want to get into critiquing individual players. I've never done that, and I never want to do that. So he's citing that there are a lot of reasons they're struggling on offense in addition to Daniel Jones, and I agree with him. So where does that stand? Where does that, lead us down the road as far as playing time and taking him out of the game? That'll be interesting to see. Wayne says, hi, Pat, just joined. Big Giants fan. Very frustrated with this team. Why is Jones still starting? DeVito gave us a spark last year. He should get a shot. Now, I don't think it would produce significantly better football, but I do think it would be more entertaining and provide a shot in the arm for fans to come into the stands for a couple weeks. But I'm mentioning DeVito more, not in the sense that it will help the team win games and be much better on offense, but I mentioned DeVito in the sense of when you bench Daniel Jones for the injury guarantee, you're doing it. And then Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito become the next two men up, right? Intel says they need to draft a quarterback. D-Kit wants to know what the Giants have to do to win this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, let's check it out. So, to me, the number one thing, and this works in the Giants' favor, is interior pressure on Russell Wilson. So Dexter Lawrence on the interior. If you can press that pocket, Russell Wilson is short, doesn't see well down the field with pressure in his face, doesn't move as well as he used to either. So interior pressure on Russell Wilson, that's number one. That you have to put right alongside that, though, stopping the run. Najee Harris and the Steelers running game. And I would throw, Jalen Warren, and also Justin Fields, the backup quarterback, that stopping the run against the Steelers for the Giants, that has to be a focus for them against any team. Any team that comes out throwing a lot against the Giants right now is just not watching their games and not watching the film. The Giants cannot stop the run. So in addition to that interior pressure on Russell Wilson, they also need to stop the run, or else the Steelers, between their defense and controlling the ball, are just going to smother them. So to me, you get the run stopped and you get some pressure on Wilson on the interior, right up the middle from Dexter Lawrence on the nose. And that's how you fluster him into some bad throws, into some turnovers. I think your defense that doesn't have an interception yet this season needs to create some of those, needs to get some turnovers, give the offense some short fields to work with. That would be my answer to that. OG, what's going on? Gary says, hi, Pat. Daboll looked more relaxed at the podium after the Mara news. I don't think Mara should have done that. Yeah, well, Gary, like I said, in the moment, you give Mara credit and you just report what he said and say, hey, here's a vote of confidence. This is good news for the guys. And that's what I did. But as we dissect this and we move on and analyze it, you have to be honest that they said Ben McAdoo was going to be fine, and then he got fired. And then they came out and there was a vote of confidence from Giants ownership in Joe Judge saying Joe Judge was safe, and then he was fired. So usually what happens is that only comes from Giants ownership, the vote of confidence, when it's inching or getting close to the ultimate kind of inflection point of the firing actually happening. And the vote of confidence is a way to try to stave it off, to try to, kind of urge it forward and to throw their confidence behind them to try to get everybody back on track. And then if it continues to go off the rails, it's kind of like, well, when I said it, we weren't 2-10, we were 2-5, right? That tends to happen. So, if Daboll's complacent, if he gets complacent, then, then we'll see the results on the field. Barb agrees the play calling was terrible. She would love to see Daboll gone. D-Kid says, seems to me that there is something we don't know behind the scenes regarding the expectations of this team. That's an interesting point. Michael says, interesting scenario there. Just depends on if they rate those two Vikings quarterbacks over the draft class. Will says, not making excuses for the players, especially the young players when it comes to lack of effort, but good Lord, we are more than a decade into a brutal run of losing. Yeah, like you said, no excuse, though. No excuse, especially for guys who've only been on the team 1 or 2 years. Gabe believes that Daniel Jones deserves all blame. I disagree, but I know plenty of Giants fans feel that way. If you watch the Eagles game and you feel like the offense didn't function because of Daniel, then I don't know what to tell you. You're watching a different game than I was. George has sold 4 out of the last 5 games of tickets, going solely to hang out with my dad. Can't watch this brutal football anymore. George, I think you speak for a lot of fans. Will says, I cannot imagine how the players feel in such a terrible environment of losing. These coaches have a tough job changing the culture, but they certainly do not appear to be helping themselves. That's all well said, Will. Since their jobs are safe, they need to bench Daniel Jones, says John. Short and to the point. Chronicles feels like it is fair to say that I want Daboll and Schoen fired. The bottom line is you can't flip a whole staff every 3 years, and the disasters you are saying have nothing to do with the team culture, more to deal with you reading into little things. I mean, Gabe, I have no idea how you consider 119 yards of offense a little thing. I hope that one day you recognize how bad that actually is. Also, you don't want to fire regimes every 2 years or every 3 years. Of course not. No, you want consistency, Gabe. You're absolutely right about that. But that is not a reason to stick it out with a regime that doesn't know what it's doing or isn't working either, right? So you could want to be patient, but that doesn't mean you stick with a bad operation either. Let's see. Ken says, interesting Daboll's response to the Russell Wilson question, how he glowingly spoke of how he made explosive plays last week. Seems a subtle message about what he wants in a quarterback. That's what I'm talking about. Throwing darts at your own quarterback, right? Let me find that answer so I'm being fair. We'll read it out loud for everybody to hear. This is the Brian Daboll answer about Russell Wilson. He says, we're beyond that, but I will say this with Russell. He's a good football player. He's been a good football player for a long time. Did a heck of a job coming back last week against the Jets. Created explosive plays to Pickens since 2018. One of the higher explosive play quarterbacks, 20-plus yard plays. Won a Super Bowl, was in another Super Bowl. Got a lot of respect for him as a person, as a player. No doubt that sounds like him saying, this is a quarterback that would have been nice to have because he creates explosive plays and we don't. So again, I go back to if you're the Giants co-owner, John Mara, this is a head coach who is indirectly, passive aggressively pointing his finger at your own quarterback and at the roster and how he doesn't have what he ideally could have to work with. So that's your leader. That's your culture setter. Remember, everybody, we are sponsored here by MyBookie. MyBookie.ag is celebrating its 10th year anniversary, rolling out the red carpet for bettors. If you use my promo code PATSPICKS at the link in all my social media profiles, you will get a 100% match on your first deposit of $50 or more, all the way up to $1,000, plus a $10 casino chip. I am crushing it right now. 5-1 on Pat's picks in the last 2 weeks. I think I'm 22-6-1 or 23-6-1 against the spread overall across the league in the last 2 weeks. So you should be tailing me on MyBookie. MyBookie Plus is the loyalty rewards program. Go to the link, use a promo code PATSPICKS, get that special deal, and bet today. Make this football season a winning season. MyBookie, bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Also brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. Wow, I'm just watching this Sam Darnold face mask in the end zone, and it looks like they're calling a safety anyway, even though he got face masked in the end zone. Wow. What a ridiculous call that was. Did everybody see that? A safety, the Rams sack Sam Darnold in the end zone, but only because they pull him down by his face mask and they don't call it a face mask. So, right, where was I? Boom Chaga, natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com, and brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee. Estate 98 is an all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar, convenient for on-the-go coffee drinkers. Takes me less than 10 seconds to make an Estate 98 iced coffee. Delicious. A minute more to make a hot coffee or latte. And it's great as a mixer for espresso martinis. Go to estate98.com/talkingball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. All right. Let's roll on here. Ken, that was a good point about the explosives and Russ there. OG says at least he got rid of Zach Wilson. I'm so disappointed Mara has given the keys to this regime, says Bombo. Interesting. Let's see. OG Knockout says we did everything to screw this kid up. John Mara said, I still think he forced Daniel Jones on them, but it was dumb for Joe Schoen to re-sign him for all of that money. OG says, I don't mind bringing Schoen and Daboll back, but with a new quarterback, please. Evan says, Jones is done here. Mentally, he can't do it, and physically, he does not have enough talent to overcome his deficiencies. Evan says, I don't see the Giants winning many games the rest of the season. I agree. D Kit says, clearly I want Schoen and Daboll both gone. I certainly do not want them to be able to draft the next quarterback. I have no faith in their ability to turn this team into a winner. I'm no longer concerned about winning any games. I've lowered my bar now. I would like an offensive touchdown, just one. Will says, I've been saying recently that it's high time that Mara and Tisch hire a third-party consultant to assist in making next GM head coach hire if they let Schoen and Daboll go. Will, I think that's a great point. I think that's overdue. And the Rams are going to win this game, beat the Minnesota Vikings, although that official who didn't call that face mask in the end zone deserves to get fined. Strider says, Pat, John is saying what some of us want to hear, which Daboll and Schoen need. A chance, but with all the losing, what are the chances of John Mara doing a 180 and changing his mind? I think if the season goes off the rails, Strider, then we've seen in the past that not only John Mara, but the combination of John Mara and Steve Tisch will result in firings if it goes off the rails, despite that vote of confidence. That vote of confidence might result in some improvements, in some increased security and some confidence for the players in the leadership, in the head coach and the general manager. And it could result in a positive way, but it could also go the other, or it could also still just continue to skid and slide. Usually this tends to be the kind of the comment before it goes off the rails. D-Kit would also like the players to play hard. Says, is that too much to ask? Great point. OG says, Pat, I know Daniel Jones is a great guy off the field, but the Giants didn't pay him to be a good guy. They paid him thinking he'd be a great guy on the field, a great player on the field, and it's not going to happen in this lifetime, Pat. Strider says he's also excited to see a football life Wellington Mara. Gary says, Pat, Daboll hasn't been the same since his first season. I believe the coach of the year went to his head. From Bono to Bozo, as John Mara said, to be careful when he was speaking to Brian Daboll, and how prescient that was. Evan says he likes how Mara is committed to Schoen and Daboll. However, it's concerning to see the team lose every week and still have confidence in Daboll. Yeah, Evan, you said that a lot more succinctly than I did. But that was kind of my point right at the start of this, is just, hey, great that you have that confidence, but all the things I'm watching with my own eyes are telling me why, right? It's making me question what you're saying. And it's very difficult to understand how the confidence um, remains in a lot of these processes. He mentioned evaluation of personnel. I mean, right now, if you don't, you have more questions about, I have more questions about the evaluation abilities of this front office and coach in personnel than ever at this moment. So I thought that was a little bit alarming there. Let's see. We should bring BJ Hill back, says Kyler, to go next to Dexter Lawrence. He's a free agent. BJ has been playing excellent football. And the Giants certainly did not, even though they got some good capital for Leonard Williams last year, they have not replaced the position next to Dexter Lawrence, and it has shown in a big way. Strider says, Pat, John Mara said he believes in Daboll and Schoen, so he's saying what some of us Giants fans want to hear. Oh, you already said that, right? Gotcha. Benji says, saying isn't enough, Pat. He has to let his play do the talking. Jones always knows he has to play better and picks and chooses when he wants to step up. I think he's always trying. It's just not always happening. Hunter says, hope all is well, Pat. Do you think Dexter Lawrence has a legit shot at Defensive Player of the Year? He's second on most betting books in odds. As of this moment, he does. I mean, if he continues to play at this rate the rest of the season, he does. It'd be interesting if the Giants fell completely out of it. Would that, eliminate him from contention? I would think that would make it difficult to win, unless, like, if the defense keeps getting better and if they still keep losing, right, then you could see it. But the Giants do have to win some games. Like, it does have to translate into some wins. I think it would be tough for a guy on like a 3 or 4 win team to win it. Though I don't have a list in front of me of the last time somebody's done that. But to me, the team needs to have a little bit more success for him to actually win, I would think. Obviously, though, if he's at the rate he's going, if he's going for, upwards of, if he stays healthy all year and nears 20 sacks as an interior lineman or something like that, obviously he's going to be in the mix. Barb says, I don't want to see Josh Azudu on the field ever again. It's incredible, Barb, that he is back on the field for this team after what happened last year. Incredible. It's just incredible. Wayne believes Jermaine Illuminor should go to left tackle. OG says, how come everyone is feeling sorry for Daniel Jones? Nobody felt sorry for Ryan Leaf and others like him. Who is Daniel related to that we don't know about? I don't feel sorry for Daniel Jones. I just feel like when the finger gets pointed at him and only him, it's just not reflective of what's actually going on with the team. And I think it's scapegoating. That's all. But he's certainly part of the issues and needs to improve. It's just not all him. Benji says he can't come to work one week and vanish another. Simple. Strider says, Pat, after the Seahawks game, we forgot to run the ball. Seriously, no doubt. Steven says, fine with what he said. What else would he at this point, meaning John Mara? I don't believe in firing in season. It does no good. Plus, the way he worded it leaves it open-ended to be changed. Well said, Steven, especially I don't anticipate after the season any changes. I agree. I still, for the record, believe there will be changes. I don't know if it'll be both guys, but there will be changes in my opinion, because I do believe it's going to keep getting worse tonight or this year. A2 says, looks like my hunch about everyone's job being safe was pretty accurate. No doubt, A2, you were right. It looks like in season, we will see. Still, 10 games to go? Strider says, Pat, with passing the ball, the defense is taking the shorter routes away. They are daring Daniel Jones to beat them with his arm, and Daniel Jones can't. Well, he doesn't have a bad arm throwing deep. In the Eagles game, they couldn't get the ball out because the sacks were coming and the pressure was there in his lap. That's what happened in the Eagles game. Now, there have been other games where Daniel's missed some of those throws, for sure. Yes, in a lot of ways, they're daring the Giants to hit those plays. Also, the Giants are running a lot of the same plays to get short completions, so they're anticipating it and they're driving on these plays, and Wandale's starting to take bigger and bigger hits. Strider says, can't forget about Cam Hayward. I know. I mean, really, how many points are the Giants actually going to score this week? Dan says they better be ready to pay Jones that injury clause money if they plan to put Azudu back out there at left tackle opposite TJ Watt. No doubt. Strider says that is correct. The 2 interceptions belong to a rookie linebacker from UCLA. Benji says caught an interception in week 1. Let's see. Okay. Evan says Jones cannot read a blitz and teams know he won't take deep shots. Strider says, Benji, he's talking about the defensive back and safeties. Oh, right. On the interceptions. Yes. Right. The corners and the safeties. So, sorry, did I say as a defense? The Giants DBs and safeties. None of the Giants DBs or safeties has an interception this year. Sorry, I misspoke. That is what I meant. Let's see. Diggy says, is Evan Neal that bad that he can't at least get a shot at starting left tackle? Also, why not start DeVito? He's been the only positive thing we've seen at quarterback since Tyrod, or besides Tyrod. That I believe that the Giants have no intention of playing Evan Neal, and it's been like a charade this entire time that they even are pretending to. I don't think they intend to put him on the field at all. And, they certainly have not given him any work at left tackle. I think it's either going to be Chris Hubbard entering the mix or Josh Azudu starting again. I think there's a chance it's Chris Hubbard, the guy they got off the Niners practice squad. I think Monday is going to be a disaster. Let's see. Josh Azudu is not a left tackle. When Daniel Jones is not trusting his protection, he's looking at the rush, not his receivers, but it is what it is. Yeah, no, that's right. Pat, I see us with only 2 more likely wins, 4-13, Max 6-11. Daboll should get fired. Shane this past draft showed improvement, but if I am correct on our record, should he go to new GM and coach? I think both. And I do. Yeah, I said 4-13 at the beginning of the year, partially because of the team they were, and partially because they always had sustained significant injuries, and they always have a lot of guys hurt. Unfortunately, looks like that is coming to pass, especially with the Andrew Thomas injury. So, yes, I agree with you on the record there. I think, I would, at this rate, I don't know how bad it's going to get. I know a lot of these players are proud, but if they can't score points on offense, like if they were losing games 24-19 and, 25-20 and stuff like that, then you would say they're going to get some wins here and there, right? But the fact that the offense has gone into the 2023 type mode that they're in right now, I think is pretty scary. And that indicates that there's no sure wins on the schedule, which is why I still think 4-13 is on the table. Chronicle says, obviously Joe Schoen making his kids say who he should pick was a fun moment he has with his family. Don't make it personal against the man. I didn't see that as personal. I think what he meant, who was it? Rick. He was calling Shane snickering as far as like him waffling and not having conviction, and I think was referring also in large part to kind of the way he was conducting himself in a lot of those meetings. Obviously, nobody begrudges any of Shane's family or kids anything there, but it was one of the lines of the show when his son said. When his son said, like, you got to go get Jaden Daniels, go get the quarterback. You're only going to have this job once. You might as well try and go win. Gabe, you're really on edge tonight. Like it. OG says, please, you can put 10 refrigerator Perrys in front of Daniel Jones, and he's still not good. He isn't Sam Darnold. Stop. KTS says Daniel Jones has no feel for the position. Strider says when the Giants were struggling with Wellington with all the losing, he actually asked for help, and somehow we landed George Young. That's right. Went outside the organization. Good point, Strider. Jones is a franchise QB2, says KTS. Chronicle says Jones is lost, and if you don't see that, you're delusional. He's not the only problem, but certainly a part of it. Yes, I think that is 100% correct. He's not the only problem, but he's a part of it. I think that's very well said. Let's see. Jim says Strider, the NFL suggested George Young to Mara. Unlikely they would show that favoritism today. Yep, a little history lesson there. Jim agrees 100% with Rick. Intel says stop hating on Pat. Love you, Intel. Strider says Pat, John Mara. You said that again. Okay. Let's see. OG says, Pat, you have to understand I've been taking shit from other Giants fans about Daniel Jones since 2000. Let's see. Okay. Bombo says, I stand with Rick. After Hard Knocks, I don't know how anybody can want these guys running things. Hard Knocks really was an eye-opener for people in the league and around the league, and also for a lot of fans. OG says, let's go Yankees, no doubt. Jim says, if I was Mara, I would convene Parcells, Sims, Banks, Coughlin, Carson, and Jimmy Johnson and ask them to help me pick a new coach and GM. I would not trust myself with my record. Let's see. Yeah, John Mara's in a tough place because he wants so badly to win, and he doesn't want to press the wrong buttons. So he's trying to be more patient than he has been recently, but will it backfire? Is he being too reactionary to previous regimes and not just evaluating this one accurately enough on his own? OG says when the Giants get a new quarterback, Giants fans will reunite and be one again. Let's see. D-Kid says, I think he's losing the locker room because he's reluctant to pull the trigger on trying something different at the quarterback position. We'll see if that's true. Strider says Daniel Jones is going to get killed Monday. I'm worried for that game. Yeah, it's going to be bad. John Ray reminds me, John, send me another direct message on Instagram. It's PL on NFL. I just double checked during the chat, didn't see it in there. So please submit, or at least tell me in this chat what your handle is. I'll make sure I follow you, so we can connect there. Make sure you get that Estate 98. All right. Hook says Ty Summers is my dude from TCU. I hope he gets better and plays. What's up, two giant goofballs? Good to see you. Let's see. Anthony says brown paper bags for sale. Brown paper bags, 2 for $3 or 4 for $5. Scissors sold separately. Anthony walking through the nosebleeds where we're all sitting, selling those brown paper bags that he knows we all need. Marcus says Sam Darnold is going to command probably a contract of $160 million for 4 or 5 years. Probably not going to happen. We should have taken JJ in the draft. Should have taken JJ. I agree. That's what it feels like right now. Fran says, I'm watching Stafford and Darnold going up and down the field. It's like shoveling shit against the tide to complete a slant here. Terrible. Daboll either doesn't care anymore or he knows his job security is very strong no matter the results right now, says Human. OG says, Pat, you're great for real. Always keeping it real. Let's see. Fran says, we don't need Nabers. Diva Nabers opening his pie hole. You've done nothing. Strider says Russell Wilson offered to be cheap and compete, and Joe said no. DJ is a starting QB, and we have $5 million for Drew Lock. Yeah, the Giants just couldn't guarantee him playing time. Right, he could come in and play and show them what he's got, but they couldn't guarantee him any more than that because of what they committed to Daniel Jones, and that put them in the spot that they are in. Anthony says, I will always love the Giants, but talking about them is about as exciting as walking through a funeral home. Dex deserves better, and I would love to see him play for a true contender before he retires. OG says, I still think something is up. Why keep Mike Kafka around, and what's going to be his future role? They did it for optics reasons, OG. He was leaving for Seattle to be offensive coordinator there, and that would have meant all three coordinators were leaving Daboll's staff last year, one fired and two of their own accord. And they didn't want that to happen. So they kept him. They denied his request with Seattle, and they gave him a title to make it look like they were valuing him and promoting him. But really, it was just a way to protect themselves optically. And obviously, Kafka went along with it. Pat, just be glad John Mara isn't Jerry Jones, says Strider, because Jerry Jones would have sold everybody out. Diggy says, would you say a quarterback must be able to make something out of nothing in order to be successful? To what degree they are able to is what it is. But if they have no ability to do it, should they get cut? I do think that there is an element to need, the great quarterbacks have to be able to elevate everybody around them. So sometimes that includes making something out of nothing. Sometimes that involves being a really strong passer from the pocket, making good reads, and making sure that when everybody else does their job, you're rewarding them and putting the ball in the right spot and changing the calls at the line to put everybody in advantageous positions in a run call against a favorable look, or like Jalen Hurts recognizing the go ball on fourth down for the Eagles, or whatever it is. But yes, I do agree, Diggy, that being able to make something out of nothing is something that, takes a quarterback to another echelon and ultimately is what you're looking for in addition to those other qualities. You don't want a guy who's like, obviously Josh Allen's weaknesses or his shortcomings sometimes are involved in the more fundamental aspects of the game, but he's kind of like a wild stallion out there who does so much well out of structure too, that you live with it. Fran says, what is needed is a proven head coach that will kick ass. Strider says, run the ball, protect Daniel Jones, hit Russell Wilson. That's the recipe for success. Tank for Cam Ward 2025, says Skyler. Daniel Jones is in our future. Strider says, Pat, our edge rushers are not very good run stoppers, just run stretch plays. Yep. And we said that. I said that in the summer, even starting with just Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, good pass rushers, not known as run stoppers. And here we are. Wayne says a good quarterback would have 4 to 5 wins right now. Old says Mara's statement means very, very little, in my opinion. Why would anybody expect anything else at this point? And that's fair too. Like, what else is he going to say right now? Old says, are we at the point right now where we need a plane to fly over the stadium with a banner like the old days? Probably, if John Mara's not getting the message yet. Yes. Strider, just so you know, for future reference, I answered this question when you asked it earlier, but you don't have to keep asking the question in the chat. I will get to your question. If you want a question answered first or comment answer first, you can purchase a super chat. But otherwise, like when you ask these questions, like all you got to do is ask it once, and I will get to it. So no worries. Anthony says the Giants are that horse that has been laying in the same spot behind that shed for over a decade. You can beat him all you want, but he ain't getting up. He's dead. Wayne says we had Wilson in the building, should have signed him for the minimum as a backup at least. Guy was a winner. Andre says, do you agree part of the problem is that they've never been clear on whether they're rebuilding or trying to win? Part of their problem is they always end up waffling between the two, Andre. They always end up trying to do both, and they end up never doing either. Let's see. Yes, brutal call in that Rams-Vikings game. Barbara says, just like I said, drafting another wide receiver didn't help the team win. Another Barkley situation. Strider says, just let Daniel Jones walk. It's hard to tell Daniel Jones supporter this, but if you love him so much, you need to learn how to let go. One of my questions about the running game. We face the Seahawks and run the ball well. The Bengals and Eagles, we can't run the ball. What's going on? They definitely recognized some looks in that Seahawks game. I think they found something, but then the Bengals and Eagles saw it on film and adjusted. So they caught the Seahawks off guard. They were running very well out of 11 personnel, but the Eagles played most of the game in nickel personnel, nickel or dime, and the Giants still couldn't run the ball. So they're definitely coming downhill, filling the gaps, and reading what the Giants are trying to do. Strider said, remember when Shane said you can't screw up picks 5 and 7? Not looking good. Daniel Jones has 100 million reasons not to worry about the hate, says Hunter. When does Joe Shane speak? At the bye week, says Evan? Yes, at the bye week. Mike says, I believe in Joe Shane, cautiously optimistic. Obviously, Daniel Jones' contract over Saquon was risky and a mistake, but his draft picks and reasoning behind them I can get behind. Burns trade also good. Interesting that you think those are good, Mike. I think his drafts have been below average, and I do believe that the Burns trade, while Burns is a good player, I think he could have used those assets to get a different edge rusher, a corner in the draft, plus had money left over either to sign Saquon or something else. Mike says, hopefully Carm will help Shane draft good O-line. Chris Snee's out there trying to help as well. We need depth, as if one of our starting tackles gets injured, we are screwed, no doubt. Hunter says, at this point, we need a line of giants: Eric Flowers, Nate Solder, Josh Azudu, Evan Neal. Mike says, franchise QB priority number 1. I trust Shane and Daboll in finding the right guy. Daboll said he would have traded up for Daniels, and he was right. Everybody liked Jaden Daniels. Yes, Steelers are a scary defense. Strider believes Tyler Newbin will get the first interception for the secondary. Mike says Thomas being out for the season is probably the worst injury possible for this team. He's the least replaceable player on offense, and it showed against a bum Philly pass rush, no doubt. Gettleman picked Andrew Thomas, Love, McKinney, etc. Shane is missing with his draft pick, says Barb. Mike says, I trust Daboll's ability to advise Shane on the best QB available in the draft, especially from Hard Knocks. Shane had a very good draft, in my opinion, says Mike. Malik is legit. Newbin's solid. I think Newbin's been spotty. Drew Phillips held Devontae Smith to -2 yards and might be the best rookie corner. Tyrone Tracy shows flashes, and Theo, good athleticism. Yeah, Smith was open on a couple plays where Hurts didn't throw to him, but obviously Phillips has been a plus. Barber says Gettleman made a mistake in drafting Daniel, but Shane made a bigger mistake in extending it with a huge contract. D-Kid says, Pat, to be clear, the criticism of Jones' performance is by no means to be mistaken as an excuse for Daboll's ineptitude. On the contrary, it highlights it. Both must go. I agree with you, D-Kid, there. I think a lot of people are using it as a Daboll versus Jones argument, but I agree with you. Jamar says, Shador, the Giants need a change at quarterback. They are lacking aura. Let's see. Authentic says, if they fire the coach, that would be the third coach Daniel Jones has gotten fired. You all have to be patient. Let them get their quarterback. Look at Houston and Washington. Mike says, who do you think the Giants should draft in round 1? Cam Ward. I don't have an opinion yet on who they should draft there. Need to study those guys more. Whether we keep Daboll or not, whoever selects the next quarterback has to stay for at least 3 years, says for sure. You can't blame the defense if we don't believe in Daniel Jones. They know they don't. So after a while, they probably feel like they're playing for nothing, which can cause quit. It's the second straight season this has happened to the defense, too. That's the other thing. Not trying to be funny, but do you think next year will be the first time the Giants draft a black quarterback? For sure, KB says. It could be. It could be, for sure. No doubt about it. If they had a higher draft pick, it might have been this year too. Let's see. Mike says not throwing for a touchdown at home in more than a year is atrociously inexcusable. It's an atrocity. If we keep Daniel Jones at this rate, we'll at least lose all our home games at the rate this is going, including for next season. Evan says Giants need to target late round guards. and tackles moving forward. Can't rely on veterans to hold up the O-line. Yeah, they need to draft better linemen, right? Like that first draft was Evan Neal, Azudu, and Marcus McKeithen. Woof. Mike says 21 points is super manageable to outscore. Offense can't even outscore 17 against Bengals or 20 against Dallas. Bronx says he would take an orange quarterback at this point, and Barbara says Mara is going to start looking at empty seats in that dump of a stadium. Right, and then we know what's next when the seats start to empty. Usually it results in the opposite of what Mara said. He said he doesn't anticipate change. He said there's no change coming this season. We will see if that holds if they keep losing and the seats are empty in the second half of the year. Guys, thank you so much for this chat. This has been so much fun talking ball live with Pat Leonard, previewing Giants, Steelers, and talking about John Mara's vote of confidence in Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. Remember, we will be doing Talking Ball post-game live from Pittsburgh, from the Steelers Stadium after the game on Monday Night Football. So it'll be a late one, but it'll be a fun one. We'll do a quick but in-depth recap of what I see at the stadium and what I learn and hear and see in the locker room after the Giants play that game against Russell Wilson, Mike Tomlin, TJ Watt, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, I'm the NFL columnist and Giants beat writer for the New York Daily News and the host of Talking Ball with Pat Leonard on the Talkin' Ball podcast on the Believe Network. We are sponsored by MyBookie. Use the promo code Pat's Picks to get a 100% match on your first deposit of $50 or more, all the way up to $1,000, plus a $10 casino chip. Click on the link in any of my social media profiles and use that Pat's Picks promo. MyBookie, bet anything, anytime, anywhere. I'm crushing it against the spreads. Go to my Instagram account, PL on NFL. Check out my record against the spreads in the last couple weeks. 5-1 on Pat's Picks. I give out 3 every week. Plus, look for my Giants sprinkles. They're bets on the Giants game where you can win some extra cash. Look for that. Also, brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. Use the Talkin' Ball 25 promo code and get a 25% off on your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month supply. Cost you only $30. Here's the code, Talkin' Ball 25. Here's the QR code. Go there, subscribe and save order. First order, 25% off. You can cancel if you want. I think you'll stay subscribed, though. Boomchaga.com. Start feeling the difference today. And Estate 98 coffee, all natural specialty coffee with no sugar. Convenient for on-the-go coffee drinkers. Takes me 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 iced coffee, a minute more to make a hot coffee or latte, and it's great as a mixer for espresso martinis. Go to estate98.com/talkingball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. Hooks says, do we have a new solution at left tackle this week? I heard they brought in some linemen to look at. DJ Humphries, they brought in for a workout. Daboll said nothing doing there yet. They got to know each other. I think it's because Humphries wants some real money, and we'll see if the Giants are going to pay that yet. Maybe not this week, but maybe they'll decide differently after playing the Steelers. We will see. Looks right now like it's going to either be Josh Azudu or Chris Hubbard at left tackle, or they could end up moving Jermaine Illuminor to left tackle and putting Chris Hubbard at right tackle because that's more of his natural position. But obviously, if Illuminor has been playing there already, maybe you put Hubbard on the left. Either way, creates a big problem. Mike says, Pat, did you know the Giants have the second worst home record? Guess who's first? The Jets. MetLife Stadium has no home field advantage. Makes sense because the stadium stinks. Hooks says, thanks, Pat. Barbara says, good deal, Pat. Respect. So does I'm a fan. And Bronx Boy says, Pasquale. See ya, pal. Guys, thank you so much for a great, great chat. Thank you especially to D-Kit, Scorpio, D-Kit again, Daniel Hirsch, a bunch of big-time super chats from Rick Hoffman, who told it like it was, Most Illest, and Elias, and everybody else who dropped in some great comments. Hit those like buttons before you go out of here while we are live. Helps the chat, helps the channel, and helps liven it up and tells the algorithm what we are doing here. And that is continuing to build a great community, a fun and interactive community with Giants and NFL fans talking about the entire league, but especially about your favorite team here, Big Blue as they're known, even though 2-5, limping into Pittsburgh, looking for a win against Mike Tomlin's 5-2 team, desperate for a victory, even after John Mara declares confidence in Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. This has been Pat Leonard here on Thursday, October 24th, saying so long from New Jersey and looking forward to Talking Ball postgame live Monday night from Pittsburgh after Monday Night Football. We will see you then right here on the PL on NFL YouTube channel after the game. See you later.